What happens after that moment is more important than you think. Not because of what you say, not because of what he says, but because of the emotional impression you leave as you walk away. And I'm not talking about a trick or some empty strategy. I'm talking about a psychological and emotional key, something Carl Jung already sensed in his theory of the collective unconscious. The feminine soul holds more power not when it explains itself, but when it simply inhabits that power, in silence. In this video, you're going to discover exactly how to walk away with such presence that he can't stop thinking about you. Even if he doesn't text you, even if he doesn't say a word, even if it feels like everything is over. And today I'm going to teach you how to do it. Stick around, because what's coming will forever change the way you enter and remain in a man's mind. So like always, I ask you to give this a like and subscribe. It's totally free for you, and it helps me a lot. Also, if this message resonates with you, share it with someone else who could use it too. Ready? Let's begin. You don't leave a mark when you stay. You leave it when you leave well. Here's the truth no one tells you. What makes him think about you isn't that intense moment you shared, or the words you said while looking into his eyes, or what you thought would stay etched in his memory. What truly leaves a mark is how you leave. Yes, it's that simple, that raw. And that misunderstood by so many women who unknowingly sabotage themselves in the most crucial moment. After an intimate encounter, everything changes. For him, for you, and especially for the unconscious perception he begins to form of you. And here's the truth no one says out loud. It's not when you're there that the connection deepens. It's when you leave well, without anxiety, without drama, without emptiness. I'm going to show you how this works, and I promise it's not something anyone's explained to you before. This is what happened to Delilah, 49 years old. She wasn't looking for love. She was in that stage of life where she was done with games and illusions. She just wanted real connections, where respect, desire, and freedom could coexist. She'd been seeing someone for 3 months who seemed to have that potential. They clicked, had great conversations, things flowed naturally. And then one day, what was bound to happen happened. A powerful emotional fusion. Deep, intimate. But what came after is what changed everything. He went silent, not cold, not distant, just lost in his own world. And she, not knowing how to interpret that silence, started to talk, to explain, to joke, to fill the space. She touched him, searching for some signal. Nothing she did was wrong, but her energy shifted. It became needy, not because of what she said, but because of what she gave off without words. He didn't pull away immediately, but something shifted. The next day, no text. That week, he was busy. And within a few weeks, what had felt like real depth just faded. The reason Delilah didn't know how to leave. It wasn't her presence that killed the desire. It was her inability to disappear with dignity. And a man's unconscious picks up on that as imbalance. As if what he just experienced with you wasn't enough. As if you needed to make sure he stays. That he thinks about you. That he reaches out. But listen closely, because here comes the powerful insight. A man doesn't start missing you when you're close. He starts missing you when he realizes you don't need to chase him, after you've touched him deeply. That's when a real bond begins. Not in the peak moment of intimacy, but in what comes after. In your silence, in your calm gaze, in your firm but feminine exit. And this is where many women ask, how do I do that without seeming cold? How do I leave without making it seem like I'm ignoring him? Let me tell you, first, don't fill the silence. He needs that space to emotionally absorb you. That quiet moment after intimacy is not a bad sign. It's a fertile field for emotional memory. If you interrupt it with nerves, you break that process. Second, make your goodbye an act of presence. Don't run out the door. Don't linger waiting for approval. Go wash your face calmly. Gather your things like you would in your own home. Don't leave like an awkward guest. Leave like a woman in control of her inner world. Third, if you feel you must say something, make it brief, with a subtle smile and the calm certainty of someone not expecting a reaction. A soft phrase like, take care of your energy today, or We'll see each other when we're meant to, said without anxiety, carries more power than 1,000 let me know messages. And most importantly, don't ask if everything's okay. If you have to ask that, it means you're no longer okay. Remember this, the woman who walks away without fear of not being chased is the one who most quickly becomes a recurring thought. Because she didn't leave a void. She left an emotional echo. And now you may be thinking, okay, I get it. I need to walk away differently. But is there something specific I can do? Some real gesture I can make right before I leave so he can't get me out of his head? Yes, there is. And in this next point, I'll teach you what it is. It's not complicated. It's not fake. But it's so powerful that when you do it, you'll feel like you no longer need to seek validation because you'll be the one holding quiet control of the memory, and he'll start seeking you without knowing why. This is the gesture that leaves him in emotional pause and how to master it without saying a single word. There's a moment many women miss, a brief but potent moment when you've already given all you were going to give, and his mind shifts into a state that few know how to harness. That moment has no words, but it holds deep emotional memory. And what you do there, in those final seconds before leaving, can make him feel complete, or make you echo in his mind like something he can't shake. The difference lies in the final gesture, not in what you say, not in what you think he needs, but in a tiny energetic decision that gets imprinted in him, even if he doesn't understand it. And I'll be blunt, most women don't do this. Not because they don't want to, but because their emotional needs take over. They stay too long. They talk too much. They look for approval in his eyes. They try hard to seem sweet, pleasant, desirable. But that effort ruins it, because what truly leaves a mark is the woman who doesn't try, the one who gives by choice and walks away out of freedom. This was Vivian's experience. She's 50, married for 27 years, a stable life, 2 grown kids. A marriage that, on paper, looks solid, but where intimacy had long faded, until, by one of those emotional synchronicities no one plans, there was a powerful reconnection with her husband, a different night. One where she finally felt seen, touched, recognized. But afterward, Vivian felt something even stronger, a need to stay there, to make the most of the moment, to talk, to thank him, to cling to what they'd found again. And she did. But what she got in return was silence. He stayed still, not cold, but distant. And in the days that followed, the bond became more strained than before. She didn't understand, until in a therapy session she heard, "Vivian, it wasn't the moment to rebuild the past. It was the moment to walk away with your new energy." That broke something inside her, because she realized, at the very moment she felt most emotionally connected, she also had the greatest need for reassurance, and that killed the mystery, killed the power. Because her final gesture wasn't elegant, it was insecure, and the male unconscious doesn't register that as connection, but as weight. So, what should Vivian have done? And what can you do? Let me make it clear. 1. Understand that the deep moment doesn't need commentary. It's not the time to say, "That was special," or to ask, "Did you feel it too?" That kills the enigma, and the enigma is what keeps him thinking about you. 2. Learn to create emotional pause with your body. Don't rush. Don't explain. Just breathe. Stay seated. Look out the window. Make brief, soft eye contact, not direct, as if you're keeping something for yourself. 3. Your final gesture should be symbolic. And this is the most important part. Choose a simple, repeatable, authentic movement that he will unconsciously associate with you. Here are concrete examples. A light touch on his arm as you walk away, without looking. A particular way you fix your hair before turning to leave. A brief whisper, not seeking a reply. A soft touch on the bed's edge. Or a look toward the door, with no rush. They seem like small details, but to the unconscious, they're anchors. Tiny symbols he won't forget, not because he analyzes them, but because they got imprinted during an emotionally heightened state, and that sticks. 4th, never walk away expecting something from him. That final gesture must come from your center, not your need. If you walk away hoping he'll chase you, it shows. And it loses its power. But if you walk away knowing you gave everything authentically, and now you choose to leave with no debts, you create an emotional space he will want to fill. And that's what you want. Not that he thinks about you out of guilt, but that he remembers you because you gave him both peace and fire, and then left like someone who doesn't need to stay to be unforgettable. That final gesture, that way of walking away without resentment, without ego, without anxiety, is more powerful than any sweet words. And now that you know this, you might be thinking, but what if I already did the opposite? What if I stayed too long, talked too much, made it clear I wanted him to stay? Don't worry, because in the next part, I'm going to show you the invisible mistake many women make right after a strong emotional encounter, and how to reverse the damage without chasing him or humiliating yourself. And the best part? You can start today. The mistake that dulls your impact without you realizing it, and how to reverse it without begging. It's not what you did while you were together, it's what you did afterward that began to dim your power without you even realizing it. And I need to say this clearly, even if it stings a little. Most women lose their magnetism precisely when they believe they're intensifying it. Not because they say something offensive, not because they do anything obviously wrong, but because they start acting from a place that the male unconscious interprets as neediness, even if you experience it as affection, thoughtfulness, or reassurance. That place, that internal state that starts to show up beyond your control, is called the fear of not being remembered. It's that micro-panic disguised as sweetness, that impulse to text something cute an hour later, that thought of, what if I push him away by not speaking to him all day? That look that says, I want this to happen again. Even if your lips say, it's fine, I'm heading out. He senses all of that, but not as love. He feels it as emotional weight, and that is what pushes him away. Marcella, 48, lived this firsthand. Married after nearly 10 years of emotional distance from her husband, they shared a moment of deep closeness. She felt everything had changed. The next day, she made him breakfast, sent him a note at work, texted him a song that reflected what she felt, and wrote at noon, I hope you're thinking about us today. Her husband didn't respond negatively, but neither did he respond the way she had hoped. And within days, the disconnection returned faster than she could have imagined. Why? Because instead of giving him space to emotionally process her, Marcella filled the silence with her own anxiety. And this is how the male unconscious reads it. She didn't give from her center. She gave in order to cling. And that's not sexy. It's not powerful. It doesn't leave a mark. Now here's the most important part. How do you reverse that mistake if you already made it? How do you regain your power if you've already said too much, already texted, already revealed your desire to be remembered, and he's gone cold? Let me be crystal clear. 1. Make an immediate pause, not a reactive one, not a strategic one. Don't explain why you're stepping back. Don't say, I realized I was coming on too strong. You don't need a dramatic goodbye. You just need to cut off the energetic signal he already felt as pressure. Let your silence speak for you, but not as punishment. Let it be proof that you've just reconnected with yourself. This isn't ghosting. This is returning to your center. 2. Don't make your next move emotional. Make it symbolic. If you reach out again, if you choose to, do it from a completely lighthearted place. It could be something as simple as, saw this and thought of you. Nothing more. No heart emoji. No loaded phrases. No explanation. Just a small message that shows you're living your life, but that he still exists there in an elegant way. That throws him off because it doesn't come from clinging or need. It comes from a woman who hasn't lost her balance, even if she showed vulnerability before. 3. Get rid of the phrase, I just wanted him to remember me. That thought is a trap because it makes you act from lack. And a woman who wants to be remembered from the soul must walk away without fear of disappearing. It's that simple, that powerful. Now listen carefully. If what you did already turned him off, your only option is to become a mystery again. And to be a mystery, you have to stop narrating yourself emotionally. The woman who needs to be understood loses her place in a man's imagination, but the woman who understands herself and asks for no interpretation leaves an echo that's impossible to ignore. And if you're asking yourself, but how do I know if I've already lost him? How do I know if there's still a connection that could be reawakened? I'll answer that in the next section. Because there's a kind of silence that doesn't mean forgetfulness. It means emotional processing in a man. And if you know how to interpret it, you can reactivate his desire without saying a single word. The emotional silence that confronts him and makes him miss you more. There's a kind of silence that doesn't push someone away. It doesn't cool things down. It doesn't create emotional distance. There's a kind of silence that activates. A silence so deep it can't be heard, but it can be felt. And that silence doesn't come from pride. It doesn't come from coldness. It doesn't come from ego. It comes from a place most men aren't prepared to face, your emotional presence without words. Because when you leave and don't follow up with anxious check-ins, don't justify yourself, don't become a shadow, but instead disappear in calm without needing to wrap anything up. He doesn't lose you. He starts searching for you internally, and that's when something powerful happens. He has no defense because you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't accuse. You didn't insist. You didn't ask how he felt. You didn't send subtle hints on social media. You simply walked away with dignity, and your silence is confronting him. Let me tell you what happened to Letitia, 50, married. For years, her husband had been practical, loving, but emotionally closed. They lived like partners, not like lovers. No spark, no depth. Until one evening after a quiet dinner, something shifted. An honest conversation, a deeper gaze. And that night, they reconnected, beyond the physical, for the first time in 15 years. But Letitia did something different this time. When he finished speaking, looking at her, touching her, she didn't ask for more. She didn't talk about the moment. She didn't try to define it with words. She simply kissed him on the forehead, stood up calmly, fixed her hair in the mirror, and said gently, "I'm going to get some water. Sleep well." And she didn't mention it the next day, or the next. For a full week, she kept a silence that was brutally beautiful. Not evasive, not passive-aggressive, just serene, clean, firm. And that silence, in her husband's own words later on, was what made me feel, for the first time in years, that she'd become a woman I didn't want to lose. Why? Because Letitia didn't use words to hold on. She used presence to rise, and her silence wasn't a wall. It was a mirror where her husband had to face himself, where he didn't find feminine anxiety to comfort him, where there wasn't a woman bending to fit his emotions. There was just her in her center, her in her axis. Her in that silence that didn't beg, didn't explain, didn't defend anything. And that silence was more powerful than any "I love you." Now listen, because here's the practical part. How do you create that kind of emotional silence without it seeming like indifference or punishment? Here's how, step by step. 1. Make silence your affirmation, not your revenge. Don't go silent hoping he'll suffer. Don't use it to control. Use silence to affirm that you don't need to validate the moment with words. Say to yourself, "That was valuable. I don't need to seal it with anything else." That creates an emotional frequency he can feel, and it throws him off. 2. Stick to your routine without drama. After the moment, just do what you usually do, but with more connection to yourself. Don't ignore him. Don't chase him. Just be you. More you than ever. And if he texts, respond kindly, but not with excitement or anxiety. With peace, because that peace unsettles him. 3. Eliminate any attempt to force continuity. Don't say, "I loved being with you last night." Don't ask, "How did you feel?" That breaks the spell. He doesn't need your analysis. He needs time to process your new energy, and he can only do that if you don't interrupt it with your need. 4. Surrender to mystery. Leave things unexplained. No clarifications. No need to confirm what happened. Let him think of you because he can't make sense of what he felt, not because you explained it to him. Because when the male unconscious can't find a pattern, it activates. And when what he feels doesn't match what he expected, he obsesses. But only if you don't break the silence that causes that effect. And now that you know this, ask yourself a powerful question. Am I willing to stop talking, to start being remembered? Because if you are, stay tuned. Because in the next section, I'm going to reveal the kind of silent connection that most powerfully triggers a man's need to come back to you, even if he doesn't text, even if he doesn't say it, and most importantly, how to sustain that connection without chasing, without controlling, without explaining. Just by being you, from your most irresistible emotional strength. The woman who walks away without emptiness and becomes unforgettable. There's a confusion that has been affecting strong, conscious, sensitive women for decades. A confusion that has sabotaged relationships, led to unnecessary breakups, and turned genuine emotional moments into emptiness. It's the mistaken belief that if you walk away, he'll take it as disinterest, or that if you don't reach out to reconnect, he'll assume you don't care. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because there's a kind of woman who walks away and doesn't leave emptiness. She leaves an impression, one that's impossible to forget. One that doesn't shout but resonates. One that doesn't chase but leaves a mark. And this woman doesn't walk away with sweet words. She doesn't explain what she felt. She doesn't walk away hoping to be remembered fondly. She walks away from her center, not because she doesn't care about the man, but because she's already learned to care about herself more than any single moment. Nadia, 49, came to understand this. Too late. 3 years after her separation, she found herself in a deep emotional connection with a younger man. They had shared moments full of chemistry, trust, and connection. But every time something meaningful happened between them, she felt the urge to keep the spark alive. She would text him just hours later, suggest plans to meet again, ask him how he felt. She wanted to make sure what had happened didn't just fade away, until one day he stopped replying. He emotionally disconnected and walked away without a word. Nadia was devastated. She couldn't understand how something so intense could end like that. Until, in therapy, she faced a truth that broke her. He wasn't running from you. He was running from the emotional emptiness you left every time you tried to hold on to something that didn't need holding. Without realizing it, Nadia was doing what so many do. She filled the silence with need. Instead of honoring the moment and walking away with strength, she tried to make sure he felt the same way she did. But what she didn't know is this. When a woman tries to hold an emotional moment with more emotion, the man begins to feel like he has to step back, just to be able to breathe. So what makes the unforgettable woman different? The woman who doesn't need to say memorable things or control how she'll be remembered, but who still leaves a mark that doesn't fade. She does something radical. She walks away without leaving emptiness, because she doesn't walk away empty. Here's how. 1. She doesn't leave hoping to get something. She leaves closing a cycle. She doesn't wait for a reaction. She doesn't drop hints. She doesn't leave the door half open. She simply feels that the moment was enough and allows herself to close it emotionally from a place of fullness. And he can feel that. A man may not understand many things, but he can sense when a woman doesn't need more. Not because she's cold, but because she's already complete. And that sensation is magnetic. Because most women stay just in case, but the unforgettable one leaves because she's ready. 2. She doesn't vanish. She leaves presence. And this is the most powerful part. An unforgettable woman doesn't disappear to create drama. She steps away, but leaves an echo. How? With a single gesture, a subtle symbol that can't be easily erased, a scent left on his pillow, a whispered phrase that doesn't seek a reply, a long gaze that doesn't beg, a laugh that stays etched in his mind. A way she touches her hair, a small, natural, repeated physical detail that becomes a symbol, that becomes an anchor, a sensory imprint he can't logically process, but that reactivates him emotionally every time he remembers it. And it's not because she wants to play mind games. It's because she left a piece of her authenticity there, without fear of being remembered. 3. She doesn't expect him to come after her, but she leaves the door open to be found. She doesn't erase her trail. She doesn't block him. She doesn't make a scene. She doesn't post subtle digs on social media. She simply goes on with her life, like someone with nothing to prove. And if he reaches out, she chooses what to do from her new position. And if he doesn't, she doesn't lose herself waiting, because she already knows her value doesn't come from his emotional rebound. It comes from her own internal stability. And that is what makes her unforgettable. 4. She doesn't act, she is. And that feeling is undeniable. She's not pretending to be calm. She's not playing the ice queen. She's not following a strategy. She's simply learned to inhabit her center. And here's the most striking part. When a woman becomes fully herself, without trying to manipulate the outcome, the male unconscious registers her as something he can't control. And what he can't control, he chases. What he doesn't understand, he holds on to. What impacts him in silence, makes him miss her, even if he never admits it. Now you see the difference, don't you? The woman who walks away with anxiety gets left behind. The one who walks away with resentful silence gets forgotten. But the one who walks away without emptiness, because she's already full, she becomes an emotional imprint, not an option, not a passing memory, but a mark. And if you're here, it's probably because you no longer want to beg, chase, or ask whether he's thinking of you. You want to become that woman. And let me tell you, you're on the right path, because in the next section, I'm going to show you how to take that same energy you once used to chase and transform it into your new, silent power of attraction. One that doesn't beg for love, because it radiates love. And when a woman radiates love, she doesn't need to chase it. It's not magic. It's not luck. And it's definitely not about finding the right man. It's a choice. It's presence. It's inner transformation. When you learn to walk away without emptiness, when you understand that your silence is not a gap, but an affirmation, when you stop asking to be remembered and start living as someone who doesn't need to be explained, your energy becomes unforgettable, because the deepest echo a woman leaves in a man isn't made of her words. It's made of her soul when she stops apologizing for having value. And if you've listened this far, then you know it. The woman a man can't forget is the one who wasn't afraid to walk away with dignity, even when a part of her wanted to stay. Now comment below, I walk away without fear because I am already complete. And let that be more than just a phrase. Let it be the beginning of a new way to live in your power. Carl Jung knew it. The woman who finds herself stops losing herself for anyone. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to tap that powerful like button, subscribe, and don't forget to activate the bell icon. But above all, don't leave just yet. There's so much more waiting for you. Dive into the other videos here on the channel and keep expanding your energy and your power. I'll see you in the next video.